And I have recording started.
There we go. Hey everyone, it's me, Stephanie Nietzsche, and today I am talking to fantasy author Thomas Kane. How are you, Thomas?
I'm all right.
Good, good. It's been a long time since we chatted. We talked, oh my gosh, a few years back, right?
We did.
But we're still active together on social media, but we haven't talked about writing, and wow, it has been a long time. So I'd love to know from then, I don't know how many years ago that was, but from then until now, let's catch up. What have you been doing writing wise?
I suspect that the last time we talked, I was finishing up the Barrow of the League series.
Yep, I do remember that. Yeah.
And the Barrow of the League series, for anyone who missed our last conversation, is to to sum up, it's a Cassandra story. It's a story about a woman who sees things coming together in her world, um, and picks up on the fact that her country's enemies are about to invade. And the
Oh, wow.
problem is that this is not the signs are not obvious, and this is politically not what anyone wants to hear. And she is, I mean, her life, the series follows her throughout her life. By the end of the story, she's her country's spy master. So she is trying to
Oh,
convince her ruler to take this seriously. And meanwhile, the preparations are coming into place, and
oh wow.
it's up to her to save her country from being overrun.
Wow. That's
And
kind of fitting for with all the stuff that's going on, today and in the past years, right? It's kind of fitting to have a political story, I think.
well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, for fortunately, that particular scenario is not the first thing on the bingo card today, but other scenarios are. And I completed that story a few years ago, and then in the interim, you asked me to bring us from our last chat to today's chat. Um,
Yes.
um, in the interim, I wrote a book which was the main character of the Mara of the League series, unsurprisingly, is Mara,
Mm,
and
mm.
in and the book one introduces Mara as a little girl. She's in her 40s by the end of the series, but book one introduces her at age 11. And when I way back first got started, I planned for her to have sort of a slightly antagonistic relationship with her mother. Her mother was, a little strict, a little forbidding.
Mm.
Her mother, was the tough parent, and her father was the one that she was sort of like, you know,
More
halfway to
easygoing.
being friends with. And and the and as I was writing that book, I got to know the character of Mara's mother better, and so Mara's relationship with her mother developed in the story, and
Ah,
my relationship with that character developed as I was writing the story. And by the time I completed the Mara of the League series, Mara's mother was a very real character to me, as opposed to
mm.
a partially real character. And or maybe anyway. Anyway, so I wrote a sequel focusing on Mara's mother called "The People versus Abigail Bennett." And
Yes.
the people you have read that, and
Yes.
for the benefit of people who have not, uh, uh, Mara's mother becomes a lawyer. She starts out as a housewife, but you know she doesn't. I want to say goes to school because that's what you do in our world. In Mara's world, this is a different technological era, so it is possible to study and read for the bar without going to university. And that's what she does. But she
That's the
she
good
does
thing about fiction.
yeah
Also, it's the good thing about being a fiction writer.
yes. Well, I mean, it was true. Abraham Lincoln did that.
Well, yeah, there you go.
I mean, it was something you could do in our world
Right.
until I don't know exactly when the cutoff point is, but until the 20th
At
century,
one time.
basically.
There was a lot of things, right, that we could do before that we couldn't do, that we can't do now. Like we didn't pay taxes a long time ago, and now we pay taxes for everything.
That is true.
We didn't pay taxes for land. We didn't pay property tax. We didn't pay tax on clothing, and everything was like more like maybe a barter, an exchange. Nowadays it's very, very different. But anyway, moving on. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is the. I mean, again, that's a tangent about taxes and barter and money, but that actually is something that I encounter writing the kinds of books I write, because I try to be realistic about practical detail. Well, pretty realistic
Right.
about practical details like money, and I also, as you probably, I mean, you definitely, because you've read the books, have picked up, and listeners may be picking up. Um, Although my books are set in the world that has, you know, it would it it has sort of the technology and some of the social structures of, say, the 1500s in Europe. That's a good way to orient it. Um, a lot of the themes I'm working with are modern, and that I'm kind of unapologetic about that. This is not a I am not attempting to be, you know period with the 1500s. I'm
Right.
using a fantasy setting with roughly that level of technology
And that,
to
yep, that's what I
explore
mean about
modern
fiction
issues.
writing.
But
You
but see,
can,
here's where we get back to the thing about money. Um, in attempting to merge the modern sensibilities with the uh, Renaissance era sensibilities, uh, you know, and trying to work out, what is the money worth? What is a person's salary? What does it cost when you buy a drink at the inn? Um,
mm,
it actually, I keep catching myself up, because you know, uh, just because as you're saying, in that period, money was used less. You could have you could have less money and still not be starving. Um,
exactly, right. Or get a drink at the bar, the inn, the tavern, the saloon,
yeah,
right? And you could
right.
not have any money. You could maybe wash dishes, wash the glasses, sweep the floor, clean up after the horses,
That's right.
things like
People
that.
did that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. And it's so interesting because a lot of people have maybe not read history to that point, or really are not aware of what went on in the past, how people lived, because it's way different than now.
That is true. And I keep one of the things that, I mean, it's a challenge I face. I hope I have, you know negotiated it effectively. Is that I'm trying to capture some of the feel of the past, and at the same time, I'm also working with some of the feel of the present.
Exactly. So did you go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to we the the overall thing we were doing is tracing my writing from our last conversation to the present. I was going to continue with that, but what
Oh, I was just going to ask you about the research, because since you begin with Mara at age 11, it spans over how many years?
let's see, she's 47 at the end, so 36 years.
So, as far as research, when you speak about trying to keep maybe the cost of something, realistic for that time, but maybe it's not that easy. And then again, it's fiction and it's fantasy. Did you have to do a lot of research? And if you did research, how did you go about it? What did you look up or look into for that?
Well, I started with a head. I had a head start, um, because the not maybe not so much for the historical, not for the maybe not so much for sort of like what does a drink cost in a tavern, but for a lot of the issues I'm covering, I had a head start, because, as I know and maybe people watching know, um, I was a lecturer at a university in England, specializing in politics and international relations.
Yes.
So I've spent, my working life, um, studying politics and war, um,
Yes.
you in real life for a living, and studying, all periods of history. I mean, historical examples are big when you're
Yes.
when you're doing this. So I came into writing these books have a lot to do with politics and war, and I came in with a lot of a lot of the foundations already laid,
Right.
and beyond and also I am I'm an American citizen, but I lived in England for much of my life, and living in England, I was close to the rest of Europe, so I was fortunate enough to be able to travel around there. And what
Mhm.
this gets to from a research point of view is, you can visit castles, you can see medieval buildings that are still around. You can you even like a little a little museum in a little town will
Mm.
have artifacts from you know that period.
Yes,
So
you could
you
see it for
get to see
yourself
what things look
instead of
like.
just yeah, for yourself up close. You even get to touch it. You get to, smell it, or you know what I mean? It's like being a part of that history. So it really helps, I imagine, when you're developing your story to be so close instead of, we get a lot of stuff online, but when you're really that up close and personal, it really, I imagine, helps you like dive into that story. That's why it's so good when writers do visit places when they want to write about other countries or towns or the way people are, to put themselves in that position, because you just get so much more of that personal experience. And I feel like you could translate it better in the story, in the writing,
Sure.
maybe so the reader can connect, you know,
Yeah.
a little better. Like you said, you had a little edge up on what was going on. So is that what inspired you to write this story and create the character of Mara?
Well, I mean that the Mara story is it goes way back. I mean, it's one that's been in my mind for a long time,
Mm,
and I think that if you want to, the original Mara idea probably was the story of Cassandra. I mean, I mentioned Cassandra's name earlier, and my 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 mother in real life told me Greek Greek, Greek legends, Greek mythology stories at an early age, and so that
mm,
image stuck with me. And I mean, again, I'm assuming everyone knows, but but basically, Cassandra is a princess in Troy, and she's given the gift of prophecy, and she but the catch is that no one believes her, so she warns the other Trojans uh, that that big wooden horse, maybe
yes.
don't bring it inside the walls,
Yes.
and but they do it anyway. Um, and as I say, I think that the Cassandra story and the sort of seeing how my mother responded to the Cassandra story. My mother
Mm,
obviously thinking they should have listened to Cassandra, um, is where the idea originally started, and the idea took on more form as I was studying politics and in graduate school and thinking about the question of what would someone like Cassandra be like, and in the myth she gets her gift of prophecy from the god Apollo. It's just sort of like given to her, but what
mm,
was intriguing me is what if it was not just magical know the future. How what kind of what kind of person um, can figure these things out in real life without divine intervention, and what kind of life did she have that
mm.
you know prepared her to see things that other people weren't seeing. What prepared her to see things that experts were not seeing, that people who presumably were better qualified than her um, were not seeing. And
Exactly.
so I got interested in Mara's personality and Mara's experiences, and and who she was as a person.
Oh, very interesting. And then I didn't want to stop you from going on with your timeline. because I
Okay,
know.
getting back to the timeline. In the timeline, I was saying that after writing Mara's story, I had become interested in Mara's mother, so I decided to write Mara's mother's story, and Mara's mother uh, becomes a lawyer, and
Mm,
in Mara's mother's book, The People versus Abigail Bennett, um, Mara's mother is now 78, and her and this is taking place at the same time as the end of Mara's story. And I've mentioned Big War a few times. That Big War has broken out, and the town where Mara's mother is living in has been overrun, and of course,
mm,
being you know, retired. Um, um, she could. I mean, it would, in a certain way, it would make sense for her, like, to hunker down and just try to survive, being occupied by enemy forces. But in the middle of this, the people who are occupying the town, you know, arrest a couple of teenagers and accuse them of murder, actually
mm.
without much evidence, and are going to make an example of them to punish them. And Mara's mother um, comes out of retirement and says, no, you can't do this. You need to give them a fair trial, and I will defend them. And so this is about Mara's mother, sort of in the middle of this chaotic wartime situation where people could just you know kill who they wanted to kill, do things by force and violence. Mara's mother is making the case that that you should have fair trials. You should have justice, and if you're going to have a fair trial, this is how you know that you have to prove that these people are guilty. Um,
Right, right,
so that is the central theme of The People versus Abigail Bennett. The the older lawyer uh, arguing for justice
right,
in
right.
an unjust world. Uh,
Yes.
the secondary theme of it is it actually about half the book is from the antagonist's point of view, because there
Mm,
is a revolutionary leader who so, uh, when the country was invaded, she sided with the invaders, um, and she is now running the town, and she is the one that is responsible for arresting the two innocent teenagers, or maybe innocent at least, to
you
use
find
a
out in the
lawyer's
story.
phrase, not proven.
Right, right.
Sorry, you were trying to break in.
Oh, no, no. I said you'll find out in the story, to the readers. They'll find out in the story. When you said
Exactly.
innocent or not innocent. Yep.
Well, I try to, so this person who is responsible for arresting the teenagers, I also show her life and her point of view, and and it's so part of what I'm doing with the story is I'm sort of trying to show how these two people, uh, from different backgrounds,
Mhm.
different personalities, whatever, but they both sort of encountered the same things about their society and responded to
Ah,
them in ways that made sense for them, and ended up on the opposite sides of this.
so there's a little backstory
Yeah,
that
it's.
you included so that way we could get more of a feel for her. Yep.
I think
So,
backstory. I like backstory. I think that I mean, as you're saying, People versus Abigail Bennett is very backstory oriented, and really one of the reasons why the Mara of the League series is 4 books is I wanted to include the backstory. I
mm,
wanted to start with Mara at age 11. See, I'm using my little finger because she's a child at age 11. The uh, and at that stage in my development as a writer, I I was nervous about using flashbacks. I sort of had it drummed into me when people were teaching me about writing that
mm,
you should, constant action. Story should always be moving forward. Um,
mm.
and 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 so since I wanted to start Mara's story with, I wanted to talk about Mara's childhood experiences,
Right,
and
right.
I didn't want to have a lot of flashbacks. Um, I just wrote a 4 volume series and started with her childhood. In The People versus Abigail Bennett, I was cockier and just went ahead and wrote those flashbacks,
Right.
and so it's one a standalone book, whereas Mara was 4. So
Very
The People
nice.
versus Abigail is now out, obviously, because we're talking about it. Um,
Right, right.
um, and what I've been doing since then is I've been writing a new story set in the same world, but completely different characters, and a different part of the world. If
Okay.
for you and anybody out there who is familiar with the series, there's a Mar- Mara's story and Abigail's story take place in the League of Caerland. My next book is taking place in the Aurelian Islands, which you will have seen if you looked at the map, but
Um,
not well. Actually, it was important in the Bar of the League series, but it wasn't it wasn't the setting.
right.
It wasn't where the characters lived. Well, this story is in the Aurelian Islands, and although we were talking earlier about how careers were less credentialized in in earlier historical periods, this story takes place at a university, um,
Oh, wow.
and it is a sort of like The People versus Abigail Bennett. This is actually this story, which will be titled "Sleep of Reason," by the way. "Sleep of Reason" is 2 stories that merge, but the the core, well, 2 stories that merge don't have a core, but the story, sort of the lead story is about a boy named Skip who is bullied in school. He has a very hard time in school, but he finds a mentor who sort of, you know, encourages him and sees something in him and gets him to university, where he studies science and makes friends, and and his is on his way to becoming an astronomer, and
Oh,
as are his friends. And as they are getting through graduate school and getting to the point where they will, you know, finish their studies, launch, uh, their mentor, who's a famous astronomer, who in their world is the man who discovered that the Earth goes around the sun, uh, dies, and there is a upheaval in the university, and the science department is reorganized, and a new head of department takes over and appoints them a new supervisor to guide them through the end of their studies. And their new supervisor has a totally different theory of how totally different academic theories and different personalities. And as Skip is getting ready to take his final exam to earn his final degree, he finds out that the new professor has changed that exam in a way that might kill him. So here he is. He's just
oh,
about to. He's studying for his adult life to do this, and the goalposts have been moved on him, and he either has to risk taking the new exam from someone who rejects everything he studied, or he
right.
has to get the university to roll back that policy. I am focusing on Skip because the book starts out with Skip, but this is an ensemble cast. Skip's friends face the same challenge and
Oh, wow.
are are also important characters in the story.
That's interesting.
I hope it is,
I
um,
think so, yeah.
and I hope it is something that um, people people can relate to. I think that this is aside aside from the fact that Skip is aside from the fact that the final exam is literally life or death. Um, this is something that happens um, fairly often
Right.
in academic careers. I mean, having policies change at the last moment, in
Right, right.
having one professor replaced with another that ha- sees the world very differently. These are
Right.
these are problems that one runs into. So uh, that is that is the first pillar supporting the sleep of reason. The second pillar is there is a woman who at the time of all this happened, she's a gardener working at the university. Her grandmother was accused of being a witch. This is a world where most people don't believe in magic. And if for readers of the Mara of the League series, in Mara's country, in the League of Karland, um, there is there is superstition about witchcraft, and witchcraft is illegal. That's in the League of Karland. In the Aurelian Islands, where Sleep of Reason takes place, um, the League is seen as being a little bit backward, and people in the Aurelian Islands, their attitude toward witchcraft is pretty similar to our attitude in real life. There are people, there are there are people that talk about it, but scientists, scoff at it. Um, the 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 educated, you know, educated, culturally dominant people tend tend not to believe in anything supernatural at all. But Elena's mother, no, yeah, Elena, Elena, and not her mother, but her grandmother. But Elena's grandmother came from the League, was accused of witchcraft in the League, living at Aurelium. You never really knew, but Elena was interested in that, and Elena picked up little bits of lore from her grandmother, and now she's working as a gardener, and low pay, low, living in a shared house with a drug dealer and other people that are down on their luck, and she starts trying to put together things that her grandmother did, and they start to work in this setting where people where science is a thing, and scientists sort of poo-poo the idea of the supernatural. Elena is starting to cast spells that work, and for a while, this is sort of her personal journey. It becomes more than that when she has she is called a giant cat into her dreams. It's a cat that she had when she was a child, and then she calls it back and grows it to twice the size of a tiger. So she has this monster that she's
in her dreams or in real life.
It gets out of her dreams.
Oh wow! Look at that. And, don't give away too much. That sounds fascinating, right there.
Well, thank you. But I hope that sounds fascinating, because of course I hope the other thing, of course, is that a giant cat is fun in your dreams. A giant cat roaming around in real life, may can be dangerous.
Yes,
and
letting the monster out. That's for sure.
Right. So Elena. Elena is basically her she's discovered magic in a world where this would be a mind-blowing discovery. So far, no one knows about it, and meanwhile, it's getting out of control. It's becoming dangerous. She has to work out what is she going to do to keep her cat from eating people, and and again, without giving too much away, Elena's attempt to control her magic and control the cat overlaps with the students' new examination, and so they end up again without giving too much away. Their stories become the same.
Oh, look at that! And that's Sleep of Reason.
Sleep of Reason.
And when could we expect Sleep of Reason to be released? You sound like you got pretty far in the story.
Oh yeah, soon I hope. I mean, by soon I mean excuse me, second half of this year, second half of 2020.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's soon. And do you have your cover or cover designer? Will you create your own cover? How will that work? Do you have a cover in mind if you don't have one already?
Here is how I hope that will work. There is an artist named Robin Burrell who has done all my books before. I I love I love her work, and I am hoping that she will be available for this. I have not yet contacted her about it, so
Oh,
I
okay.
don't want to assume, but
Right,
I'm
right.
hoping she'll be available, and um, and I'm relatively optimistic that she'll be available, and and assuming she is available, the way we normally I I haven't yet decided what the cover should be because she reads my books, and she excuse me um, contributes ideas, so we collaborate on
Mm.
developing the cover, and then I collaborate with a different professional on taking her painting and you know,
Oh,
formatting it
so
and
she'll
doing the border, the font for the title, etc.
Robin, you said her name is Robin, right? Robin will read the story before she draws up a mock or a draft of the cover. Is that what you're saying? She reads the story beforehand?
Correct. I mean, we
Oh,
talk
that's
about
good.
we more talk about it in text. I mean, she doesn't she wrote
Ah,
she made a draft drawing for the first book, but now that I know um, that was sort of just so I could see what her art was like. Now that I know what her art was like, um, she may do draft for herself, but I get the final.
right. The final version. I think you did share some of it online, perhaps. I
Yeah,
remember a scene. Was it the floor breaking or the roof breaking? Right. I remember things like that were shared. And another story. I won't get too much into it, but I do remember you did share some of the artwork. So that was good because that's great content right there. And then the readers see it and they're like, oh, I want to know because the scene looks so interesting about what was going on, and then the reader will say, yeah, I want to know what happened there. So that's, I think, sharing those snippets if allowed, because a cover designer I had in the past, I wasn't allowed to share anything, so I couldn't share anything, only the final. But everybody has their own way of working. But I think that's great for getting readers interested in the story, sharing little scenes and drawings from the artist. I think it's good for the designer too.
thank you. And yeah, I think it's great. I mean, the the scene with the breaking ceiling is became the cover of People versus
Yes.
Abigail Bennett.
Yes.
It actually, speaking of spoilers, um, that scene. I mean, the scene is fine for the cover. Excuse me. The scene is fine for the cover. It is not. Until you read the book, you won't you you won't know what it is until you've read the whole book. So it's not a spoiler in the bad sense. But
Right.
if you once you have read the book, um, the entire ending of the entire climax of the book is contained in that scene.
Yeah.
But as I say, I think you have to read the book before you understand why.
Right. And it's nice when that fits together
Yeah,
and when the reader can say, make the connection
yeah.
between a cover and the story, or it's really nice how that came together. So very good, very good. So now, how long with your latest book would you say, when did you begin? Like, how long has it taken you so far to write this story?
Oh gosh, that is longer than I planned. Is the short answer to that. Um, the story here is this is actually I said earlier sort of like sorry, I'm losing my voice, which is not
I
good.
know, I hear, I'm
Um,
sorry.
excuse me. Um, Sleep of Reason is also a story that has been in my mind for a significant part of my life.
So
It's
even before you started writing the other stories, you had this in the back of your mind, playing out
yeah.
a little bit?
I think Mara might be an older. It sort of depends on when was it sort of like an idea and when did it actually become this story. You can get into sort of
Mm,
philosophical questions there, but this story and the Mara story, um, both reach back into my real life teenage years, um, and then and this story and this story, Sleep of Reason, uh, became I actually wrote Sleep of Reason um, in the late 1990s, and I found a traditional publisher that was interested in. I mean, self-publishing, as we
Wasn't
know it, didn't really exist then. I got it accepted by a traditional publisher.
wow.
It never actually came out. The the 2000 there was a recession hit, and the publisher had cut back on their releases.
Oh,
So uh, it got accepted. So, but it didn't get in print, which is well, obviously I wish it had gotten in print. But what
right,
that did
right.
mean is I had 20 more years, 20 plus more years,
To
and,
work
and
on
my,
it.
my thoughts developed over that time. Um, so after I finished People versus Abigail Bennett, about 2 years ago, my plan was to take the manuscript that had already been accepted and just sort of work on the idea that, well, if it got accepted once, it was probably ready to go, and just make a few tweaks to it and release it right away. But as I as I made the tweaks, I started to see that there were more things that I really did want to do with it. And
Ah,
Robin Earl, the artist, encouraged me to do to make it the best, to make it as good as I could. To take as much time as I needed to
polish
make
it.
this the book I wanted to write now, not the book
Right,
I wanted to write 25 years ago.
right,
Um,
right.
so I appreciated that advice, and I followed that advice, but I still thought that revising it would be a matter of 6 months. Um,
Mm.
uh, excuse me. Instead, it's revi- as I revised it, I saw that it really needed to be two books rather than one,
Oh,
and
wow.
so
Look
it's
at
now
that.
a duology rather than a single book. And
Oh,
both of those books have been, for me as the author, very rewarding to write. I feel as if I'm getting to do some things that I really want to do, getting to explore some things that I really want to explore, bringing out some, including new adventures where exciting things happen, including getting into characters' heads and showing
wow.
their personal experiences and relationships. So it has been productive, but it the 6 months has become 2 years,
Mm.
and as we were saying, it still is not finished. I sincerely believe that I'm approaching the end of the process. Um, One could be cynical and say that I have believed that before over the past 2 years, but I believe it now with more. Um, well, I mean, before I thought well, I only have about 10 chapters left. I'll just do that. Now I think I only have about 1.5 chapters left. I'll do that. I think I could
Wow.
probably uh, push through the 1.5 chapters faster than I pushed through the 10.
Gotcha.
And so the point is, uh, it actually it actually will be coming out soon, but it has taken longer than I planned.
So would you say there was more character development when you started to work on the story more? Were there significant changes? Because you said now it's like it's a duology. So were there significant changes, or the story just maybe there was just more to add, more events?
All of the above.
Mm.
The a uh, well, the reason why it became two stories instead of one is, um, when I wrote the original story, the one the 1990s version, um,
Uh-huh.
the premise of the story was I mentioned this final exam that is life or death. Um, well, the original version started out chapter one, character takes final exam, dies. Other characters that survived, see that, and say, we don't want that to happen to us.
So this is literally life or death. This is not career life or death. This is literally life or death, do you mean?
Yes, they
Oh,
one of the ways in which the academic process in this world is different from ours.
right.
There is a cave that that you go down into you spend the final part the final part of your studies, learning as much as you can about your topic, trying to develop a personal insight into what you're studying, and then when you think you're ready, you go into these caves and you have an experience in the caves that no one, um, it can't be described. It's a mystery. But you have an experience in the caves, and if you have gotten it with what you're studying, you have an epiphany, and your ideas come together, and you understand your topic in a deeper way, and you come back out of the caves and are then eligible to receive your university degree.
So
It's
that's
called
how you pass
it's a
the
step
test.
beyond PhD. It's called savant doctor. Um, um, but if you are not ready when you go into the caves,
Oh,
you die or
don't tell us what happens. Don't tell us what happens if you're
well,
not ready.
that's the premise.
Oh,
The,
okay.
and the and so in any case, the way the story became two books instead of one is in the original version. I was just going to sacrifice one character to show how badly this test can go. Um, and and the story
Oh, the stress.
the story was about the survivors. The story was about his friends that you just didn't want him. Did saw what happened to him, knew that they had to do something so the same thing wouldn't happen to them.
Right,
And
right.
what I so that was the idea 25 years ago, and it followed a lot of writing rules. It starts the story off with action,
Mm,
excitement from the first page, which is good. I
yeah.
again in all my, you read my book and decide for yourself. But my books still start with action from the first page, or I try to do that. But anyway, this version started with action. Um, well, as I say, it did a lot of the things that writing teachers tell you to do. Um,
Mm,
However, um, one thing that one rule that it broke is that no one talked about this in the 1990s, but more recently there's been a conversation about fridging characters. And the main, again, I'm assuming a lot of people already know this, but for anyone who wants a definition, fridging characters is when you do basically what I did. When you have a character who is just there to to die horribly, so that the other characters have a motivation for what they're doing, um,
right.
and fridging really becomes a problem when you take a member of a marginalized group, and yeah, we have
Mm,
marginalized groups in this story. They die in the first scene, and then we don't have to worry about them anymore. Then our majority, well, whatever you want, whatever term you want to use, characters can have the adventure. Um, so the real reason fridging is bad is when it's used to to include marginalized characters in your story
mm,
without really including them.
mm.
And when it's used to, and when it creates the impression that marginalized people um, can't be the heroes. They're just there to die so that the heroes have something to, to, to fight for. Um,
Right, to have a
well,
goal, to be motivated in the story, yeah, to keep
the
the
character in
story
my story
moving and
was not a marginalized person. So I don't think that I would have committed any social justice sins by sticking by going ahead and fridging him. I think it would have been okay to fridge him. However, this conversation about fridging just got me thinking. Even though this character, even though there's like probably no social or political reason to worry about fridging this character, um, he's still a character. He's still an interesting person. He does have a story which we should explore. Maybe he should not just die, um, and maybe
Mm.
we should know who he is. Um, and so I changed it so that in so that so basically his his story becomes part of the story. But since I already had stories about the other characters, by putting the spotlight on a new character, I was effectively doubling the size of the book. And
Right.
then since I was giving this character a chance to live and a chance to be seen by the readers, um, I also uh, I also put in more about Elena. I mean, Elena is the character that figures out how to do witchcraft,
Right,
and
right.
and in um, previously we were going to meet Elena, when her witchcraft is already working. But since I've taken the step of you know of writing a second book, I am now sort of showing more of how did she learn how to do this? What is it like to to,
Ah,
to become a witch in this world where you know you where people don't believe in witchcraft. So
right.
another catchphrase that I hear a lot today that I had never heard in the 1990s. And this is not a social justice catchphrase. This is just a writing catchphrase, but it's magic system. Um, you know, there's been a trend in fantasy where you don't just have magic. You tell readers how magic works. Um, and
Oh,
uh, so now I have a lot a lot more detail on this world's magic system, and it is not just informational. I am as we sort of touched on earlier. I am pretty serious about most of the things I write about. When I write about Abigail Bennett fighting for justice and the rule of
justice.
law,
Mhm.
that is because I sincerely believe that justice and the rule of law matter in real life. Uh, I sincerely believe that justice and the rule of law are contested in real life, and I am so when I write about when I write about Abigail arguing for justice and the rule of law, uh, I am commenting on real life. Well,
Mm,
say this obviously. Magic is in a different category. You know, when I go grocery shopping, I don't ride my broomstick, but the at the same time, uh, the 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 exploration of magic in this world is does get into philosophical issues that I actually hope that they're interesting to explore. Things
yes,
about the nature of consciousness, the of the relationship between consciousness and the rest of the world.
right. Well,
And again, these are things I am more I am more confident in my arguments about just about political issues than about metaphysics. Um, but I am interested in the metaphysical stuff, and writing a longer story has been a chance to explore it.
wow. Well, that sounds great. That sounds like a story not just for fantasy. This will also be the fantasy genre.
Yes.
So this sounds interesting for readers across the board. So when we can expect that in a few months? You said the middle of the year?
Yeah, middle of the year. I mean, again, I I hope it will be the middle of the year. If
That's what you're shooting for right
maybe
now, but you
yeah,
never
maybe
know,
on the
right?
later side.
You never know.
Yeah,
Because just like you had that book complete at one time, it has now turned into something bigger,
exactly.
right? So that could, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen down the line? But Sleep of Reason is the title of that book,
Correct.
right? And we will definitely expect it sometime during this year. And it will be available. Where will it be available? On
It will be
Amazon?
available on Amazon. It will be it will be Amazon is Amazon KDP is the go-to place for this. I'll probably also I will like have have copies, and so if you meet me, if you are physically around me, um you'll be able to get them. I may like put them in, you know, I may get them into a library here, a bookstore there. But seriously, if you're watching this on YouTube, the chances that we will physically be in the same place are pretty slim. So Amazon KDP is the answer. And
Gotcha.
if you want updates on this, etc., I have a website which is thomasmkane.com, all one word, THOMASMKANE .com,
Wonderful. So you know what?
and
When
a newsletter you can subscribe to from the website.
you can, in the comments of the video, when we're complete, in the comments after I air it, you can share all your links. That would be
Thank
great for all your books and for your website. Sound good?
thank you. That's fantastic.
You got it. Well, as always, it was a pleasure to speak to you. I know you have some strain there on your voice. Maybe have some tea and clear it up a little bit. But it was so good to speak to you. And Sleep of Reason, it sounds like a really good read. I'm looking forward to it myself. And I don't read fantasy, but it sounds really good because I want to know. I want to know that life or death situation. I also want to know about that big cat.
Well, thank you. I'm very honored.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me here today. And thank you for your time and sharing your wonderful stories. And I'd love to chat again after the book is released because there's something also I wanted to talk about. I know we can't get into it now, but you went to a very interesting school where you did some very interesting things, I think, because you had freedom, a lot of freedoms at the school to roam and I wanted to touch on that too, but we talked a lot about the books, which is fabulous. But next time, after you release Sleep of Reason, let's chat again. Sound good?
That sounds fantastic. Again,
All right,
I'm
great.
so grateful for the opportunity to speak here. I would I would be delighted to talk about my education, as I think as it's sort of been as we sort of touched on a few times. I think that that also finds its way into my stories.
I think so too.
Growing
Yeah.
up and the way you know the the dynamics of that. So so thank you. I look forward to it.
I agree. That's why I want to talk about it. I think it's so interesting, and I think it's good for other people to hear too. It's just so interesting, but unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about it today. But definitely, we will meet up again, and we will do this again. And in the meantime, Thomas Kane, fantasy author, thank you so much, and get cracking on that book. Fix your voice, and we'll see you sometime this year after
I
the
look forward
release.
to it.
All right, great. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thomas is going to put the links in the comments after this airs, and you can find all of his books and his website and share your Facebook also. Okay. All right, great. All right. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching.